So you've just joined the Roman army. Congratulations. You probably didn't have much of a choice. Maybe you were a poor farmer in Gaul. Maybe you were the second son of a dirt-poor family in Hispania. Maybe you were just really bad at picking a career. Either way, you're here now, and life's about to get a lot harder. Let's rewind just a little. You were living your life, working in the fields, probably covered in mud, and regretting most of your life choices. Then the recruiters came through town. Big guys in armor, fancy cloaks, scarred faces. They set up in the village square, shouting stuff like, "Join the legions, see the world, earn your citizenship, glory and gold." Sounds great, right? Wrong. They didn't mention the 25 years of pain, sweat, blood, and, let's be honest, questionable food. Now, you might have volunteered because you were promised land and a pension when you retire. That's a joke, by the way. Most soldiers don't make it that far, or maybe you were conscripted, meaning you were told you were going. No choice. The local magistrate pointed at you, and that was it. One nod, and boom. Say goodbye to Mom and the goats. Either way, you're now property of Rome. Step 1. Strip down. Literally. First thing they do, line you up, take your name, and inspect you like livestock. They measure your height, check your teeth, your arms, your legs. Can you walk? Can you carry stuff? Can you not die immediately? That's good enough. Then they hand you something called the sacramentum. Sounds fancy, right? It's not a cookie, it's an oath. And it goes something like this. I swear to obey my commanding officers, to never desert, and to serve the emperor faithfully until death. No takebacks. Once you say it, you're no longer a free man. You are now a Miles, a Roman soldier. Just a cog in the biggest, deadliest military machine in the world. You don't get to quit, ever. You either serve for 25 years, or you die trying. Your identity? Gone. Your hair? Also gone. Oh, did you like your name? Maybe something cool like Cassius the Brave or Lucius the Swift? Yeah, forget it. Now you're just a number in a contubernium, a squad of 8 guys. You all sleep together in one tent. You eat the same food. You march the same miles. If one of you screws up, everyone suffers. Also, say goodbye to your long, flowing locks. The army doesn't care about your style. They shave your head on day 1. Why? Lice and discipline, and because misery loves company. What happens next? Pain. Mostly pain. But we'll get to that in the next chapters. For now, let's talk about how weird this feels. You've gone from a quiet life in the countryside to this massive, loud, dusty army camp. There's shouting, marching, clanking, and the occasional screaming from someone getting punished. There's the smell of sweat, iron, and bread that probably should have been thrown out yesterday. You're standing there in itchy wool, holding a pack you don't know how to wear yet, with a wooden sword in your hand, wondering how this became your life. And guess what? Training hasn't even started yet. So, what did you just sign up for? Let's break it down. You're now part of the Legionnaries, the elite heavy infantry of Rome. These aren't just random guys with spears. These are highly trained, utterly miserable, absolute war machines. Each legion has about 5,000 men, give or take a few who've already dropped dead. The Roman army doesn't care if you're tired. It doesn't care if your boots are full of blisters or if your back feels like it's splitting in half. You march when they say march. You fight when they say fight. You build forts, dig trenches, and carry more weight than a donkey with a death wish. You are, from this day forward, a soldier of Rome. But hey, there's one upside. Okay. I know it sounds awful, and honestly, it is awful. But there's something kind of amazing about it too. You're now part of the most disciplined, most organized, most feared military force the ancient world has ever seen. The legions don't just win battles, they crush enemies, they conquer nations, they build roads and cities and empires. You will march across continents. You'll see deserts, forests, rivers, and seas. You'll fight barbarians with wild hair and louder screams than common sense. You'll stand in formation with thousands of others, shield to shield, moving like a human tank. And maybe, just maybe, if you survive all this, you'll earn a plot of land, a pension, and the right to call yourself a Roman citizen. That's the dream. Whether it comes true, hey, that's another story. So sleep well, new recruit. Tonight, you lie down on a straw mat, surrounded by snoring strangers, under a cheap canvas tent that leaks when it rains. Tomorrow, you start marching. Your feet will hurt, your muscles will scream, your stomach will growl. But no one cares, because you're in the army now. Welcome to the Legion, recruit. You'll never be the same again. So, you survived your first night in the Legion. Kind of. You didn't sleep much. That straw-filled mattress was more like a bag of crunchy sticks. Your new tent mates snored like wild boars. One of them definitely kicked you in his sleep. Twice. And then just as your body finally gave up and drifted off, a horn blew, loud, right next to your tent. You're up, you're confused, you're cold, and someone's yelling at you in Latin so fast it might as well be angry music. Welcome to your first day of training. Get up or get punished. You scramble to your feet, trying to remember where you are. A man twice your size is already shouting, and he's holding a stick. Not for walking, for discipline. You've got about 60 seconds to get dressed, grab your gear, and stand in line outside. Mess up, and that stick meets your backside. No one helps you. The others in your tent are already moving like they've done this 100 times. That's because they have. You're the new guy, the fresh meat. And you're already behind. March or die. Literally, first thing on the schedule, marching. Just marching. Sounds easy, right? Walk in a straight line, swing your arms, follow the guy in front. Now try doing it in full gear, carrying a 50 to 70-pound pack for 20 miles, in sandals, on gravel roads, with the sun in your face and the sweat soaking through your tunic by hour 2. Oh, and if you fall behind, you don't get water, you don't get rest, you get shouted at, pushed, maybe even whipped. There's no sympathy in the Roman army, only pace. What's in the pack, you ask? Let's see. A few days' worth of grain, a cooking pot, tools for digging, a saw, a pickaxe, spare sandals, and your tent. Which, fun fact, you have to carry in pieces because it's shared with your squad. Also, armor, sword, shield, javelins. You're basically a walking supply cart with legs. They even had a nickname for legionaries like you. Marius's Mules. Named after the general who decided it was a great idea to make every soldier carry their own world on their back. Thanks, Marius. Break time? Ha! Good one. Maybe you're thinking, after all that marching, we probably rest for a while, right? Nope. Now it's time for drills. They hand you a wooden sword, heavier than the real thing, and tell you to practice stabbing a straw dummy. Over and over and over again. Not swinging, stabbing. Because the Romans didn't like flashy swordplay. They liked efficiency. A stab to the gut is faster, cleaner, deadlier. You practice until your arms are jelly. Then you march again. Then dig. Then do push-ups. Then maybe build a wall. And this goes on for weeks. Make a mistake, you're gonna feel it. Discipline in the Roman army is intense. Show up late, get beaten. Drop your sword, get beaten. Fall asleep on watch, you better pray. There's no gentle scolding, no try again tomorrow, just pain. And not just for you. Sometimes the whole unit gets punished because of one guy's mistake. Why? Because if everyone suffers, they'll make sure you never mess up again. It works. And it's terrifying. No days off. Ever. The Roman military doesn't do weekends. Training happens every single day. Rain or shine. Sore or sick. There's no such thing as calling in tired. And even when you're not training, you're working. You build roads, you dig trenches, you cut wood, you sharpen your gear, you clean the latrines. If you're lucky, maybe you get a few minutes to eat. Rest, that's for after you're dead. Food that fights back. Speaking of eating, you thought army food would be bad, right? Well, you were correct. You get a small ration of grain, a chunk of salted pork, and some sour wine called posca, basically vinegar water. The grain, you have to grind it yourself, make your own dough, and bake your own bread on a campfire after marching all day, in full gear, with hands so tired they shake. Somehow, you still burn it. And yes, you still have to eat it. Everyone is watching. Here's the thing they don't tell you when you join. You are never alone. There's always someone watching you. Your optio, assistant to the centurion, is watching. Your centurion is watching. That older soldier with the crooked nose and missing ear, yeah, he's watching too. One bad move, one sign of weakness, and they're on you. Not because they hate you, okay, some of them do, but because the Roman army doesn't care how tired you are. It only cares that you're disciplined, obedient, and ready to kill on command. So, why not quit? Simple. You can't. Remember that oath you swore? The sacramentum? It's legally binding. You break it, and you're considered worse than a traitor. Desertion means death. Not just for you. Sometimes for your whole unit. So yeah, you're staying. And yet, you're changing. Somehow, by the end of week 1, something weird happens. Your feet still hurt, your arms still feel like noodles, and your back is screaming for mercy. But you're standing straighter. You're moving in rhythm with the others. You're faster, sharper, stronger. The training is horrible, no doubt. But it's also working. You're starting to become a soldier, a Roman legionary. And that's just the beginning. Cue sound of footsteps crunching gravel, wind blowing across open plains, leather creaking, and the faint grunt of men trying not to collapse. South, it's day. Honestly, you've lost count. Time means nothing now. All you know is you wake up, you eat something sad, and then you march. All day long. Not a little walk around the fort, not a nice stroll through the woods. We're talking full gear, 20+ miles, sun or rain, uphill, downhill, through mud, over rocks, past things that definitely looked like bear tracks. And you better keep up, because falling behind, that's not an option. That's a punishable offense. The Roman military's favorite hobby, marching. You thought being a soldier meant fighting. Swords, shields, the glory of battle. Yeah, no. First, you march. Because to Rome, mobility is power. Armies that can move faster win. So, the Roman legions became marching machines. They trained to cover insane distances, 20 to 30 miles a day. And that wasn't just once in a while. That was standard, especially in training. They even had names for it. A regular march was about 15 miles at a steady pace. A forced march was over 20 miles, done fast, without breaks, in full armor. Guess which one you're doing today? Yeah, forced march, obviously. Let's talk about that gear. You've got about 70 pounds strapped to your poor breaking body. Let's do a quick inventory, just to remind you how much pain you're in. Helmet, metal, tight, and very sweaty. Lorica segmentata, that shiny armor everyone loves, feels like you're wearing an oven. Scutum, a massive curved shield, roughly the size of a door. Gladius, short sword for stabbing. Two pila, heavy javelins strapped to your back. Plus your pack, a pan, shovel, stakes for the nightly camp, food, a water flask, extra tunic, some firewood, and a cheerful reminder that life used to be easier. So yeah, every step is a struggle. Every breath feels like your lungs are filing a complaint. Your feet, they hate you now. Let's get something straight. Your feet are going to suffer more than anything else. The sandals you're wearing, called caligae, they've got open toes and hobnails hammered into the soles. Great for traction, terrible for comfort. By mile 10, you've got blisters. By mile 20, those blisters have popped. By mile 25, your socks, if you're lucky enough to have them, are soaked in blood, sweat, and tears, mostly yours. And there's no foot doctor waiting at the end of the road. You deal with it, or it gets worse. Infections, swelling, trench foot. Yes, that was a thing even back then. But Rome doesn't stop for your sore toes. Water? Maybe. Shade? Huh. Rest? Not likely. You might get water breaks if your centurion is feeling merciful, but don't count on it. The sun's beating down, the air is thick with dust, and the guy in front of you hasn't bathed since last Saturnalia. Shade? Nope. You're on a road, in open terrain. No trees, no cover, just the endless grind of leather on stone. And lunch? If you get it, it's a handful of dried grain and a sip of warm posca, that wonderful vinegar drink they give you instead of actual wine. Tastes like a bad idea and regret. But hey, it's got electrolytes. Kind of. The march never ends until it does, and then it gets worse. So after 8, maybe 10 hours of dragging yourself across the empire, you see a flat spot up ahead. Your officer shouts something about making camp. You think, finally, rest. But no, you don't rest. You build the camp. Every night, without fail, Roman soldiers were required to construct a fully fortified camp from scratch. That means digging a trench around the perimeter, piling up dirt into a rampart, hammering wooden stakes into the ground, setting up tents, starting fires, cooking your sad little dinner. Only then do you get to sit down. Maybe. Why so much marching? Here's the thing. The Romans weren't just obsessed with marching because they liked pain. Though, jury's out. They knew that an army that could move fast, build camps, and stay organized on the road would survive. That's how they beat enemies who were stronger, wilder, and sometimes better armed. The marching kept soldiers tough. It built endurance. It kept the unit in sync. You start to know how the guy beside you breathes, when he slows down, when he needs a hand. It was the Roman way of saying, if you can survive this, you can survive anything. But not everyone survives. Let's not sugarcoat it. A lot of men didn't make it. Some collapsed mid-march. Some passed out from heat stroke. Some got infections from blisters that turned ugly. And some just gave up. But Rome doesn't like quitters. You fall behind. You're left behind, or punished, or made an example of. That's how serious this was. One bad march could end your career, or your life. And yet, you keep going. Because oddly enough, after a few weeks, your body starts to adapt. You find a rhythm. You figure out how to adjust your pack just right. You learn to shift your weight on the roughest parts of the road. Your feet toughen up. Your mind stops screaming. The pain never goes away, not completely, but you stop fearing it. And you start marching like a real Roman soldier. Head up, shield balanced, sword ready. You become part of the line, the rhythm, the machine. And no matter how miserable it gets, you know one thing. You're not alone. Everyone around you is hurting just as much, and somehow that makes it bearable. So you've survived another day of marching, digging, shouting, sweating, and being yelled at by someone with way too much chest hair and not enough patience. Congrats. Now it's time to eat. And by eat, I mean try not to cry while chewing something so dry it might legally count as a building material. Welcome to the Roman Legionary diet. Don't expect a feast. Let's just get one thing straight. This is not a 5-star meal. It's barely 1 star. Honestly, some rocks have better texture. Forget about juicy roasted meats, big jugs of wine, or spicy stews. That's what generals and rich senators eat back in Rome. You get grain. Lots of it. So much grain. It's the base of your diet. You eat it for breakfast, lunch, dinner. If you're lucky, you'll eat something with the grain. If not, it's just grain. So, what's actually on the menu? Let's break it down. Grain, mostly wheat or barley. You're given a daily ration of about 1.5 pounds of grain. Not bread, not pasta, raw grain. Your job? Grind it, mix it with water, cook it yourself. That's right. After marching all day, you get to be your own chef. In the dirt, with no kitchen, and one cracked pot that's seen better centuries. You'll usually turn it into porridge, pulse, mushy, bland, and very uninspiring. Flatbread, dry, chewy, usually burned on one side. Hard biscuits, which double as makeshift armor when necessary. Salted pork or bacon. A little chunk of cured pork might come your way once in a while. Not enough to get excited about. Think of it as meat-flavored encouragement. It's salty, tough, and slightly better than chewing on your sandal. Still, you'll guard that pork chunk like it's made of gold. Posca. Ah, yes, Posca. The legendary drink of Roman legionaries. What is it? Take some sour wine that's already going bad. Now water it down. Then add vinegar. Boom, that's Posca. It tastes confusing. A little sharp, a little gross. But surprisingly, it helps with hydration. It also kills some bacteria in the water. So yeah, not tasty, but useful. Kind of like half the people in your tent. Occasional extras, if you're lucky. Once in a while, your rations might include olives, salty, oily, good for calories, cheese, if it hasn't gone weird, onions and garlic, the Roman version of flavor, vinegar-soaked vegetables, technically food. If you're near a city or supply fort, you might be able to trade for something fresher, but most of the time, it's back to the Holy Trinity: grain, pork, vinegar. Now, imagine eating that every single day. Day 1, you're like, okay, not too bad. Day 5, you start having weird dreams about honey cakes and roasted lamb. Day 30, you're seriously considering eating your boot. The problem isn't just the taste, it's the repetition. You eat the same things, in the same order, at the same time, day in and day out. You're always kinda hungry, never full, never satisfied. It wears you down, slowly, constantly. Cooking is a team effort, kind of. Remember your contubernium, the squad of 8 soldiers you share a tent with. Well, you eat together too. You combine your rations and take turns cooking over the same fire. It sounds cozy, until you realize none of you know how to cook. One guy burns everything. Another oversalts the porridge like he's seasoning a sea. And there's always that one guy who just eats raw grain and says it's efficient. But hey, food builds morale. Even bad food. You sit around the fire, chew on something, maybe swap stories, and try not to think about the blisters on your feet or the next march coming up. Spoiled food? Oh yeah, that happens. There's no refrigeration in ancient Rome. Shocking, I know. So your salted pork can go funky. Your grain can get moldy. Your cheese can turn into an aggressive life form. You eat it anyway. Because what's the alternative? Starving? No thanks. Diarrhea was kind of a regular guest in legionary life. They called it the runs. We call it a full-body betrayal. And if you got it too bad, you could dehydrate fast. Remember, you're marching all day. There's no time for recovery. One bad meal could end your whole career. Hunting, foraging, nice idea, doesn't work. Sometimes you're out in the wild, and some genius says, "Hey, let's go hunting." Cool idea, if you weren't also carrying 80 pounds of gear and running drills until sundown. Also, most legionaries don't have time or permission to wander off and pick berries like they're in a picnic scene. Foraging? Maybe you find a sad mushroom or two. Maybe a squirrel runs past and mocks you. That's about it. So, why didn't the Romans feed their soldiers better? Honestly, this was feeding them better by ancient standards. Rome was organized, but they weren't a gourmet restaurant. The goal was calories, simplicity, and portability. The army had to feed thousands of men, often in remote places, without supply lines. Grain was easy to transport, didn't spoil fast, and could be made into many forms of sadness. That's why it was the base of everything. And yet, it keeps you going. Weirdly, you get used to it. Your stomach adapts. You stop hoping for flavor and start thinking about function. The porridge gives you carbs. The pork gives you protein. The posca keeps your gut from turning inside out. And when it all works, you can march 20 miles, carry your own weight in gear, dig a moat, and still have enough energy to fight a barbarian the size of a barn. So, yeah, it's not tasty, but it works. All right, so you're marching, training, eating sad porridge, and doing your best to not get killed in battle. But here's the dirty secret about being a Roman legionary. Most soldiers didn't die fighting barbarians. Nope, they died of disease. Yep, not the sword, not the spear, not even the arrow, but tiny, invisible killers you can't see, smell, or hear until it's too late. Welcome to the camp, the Petri dish. Imagine the typical Roman military camp. A few thousand men, living packed together in tents, sweating, bleeding, coughing, and sharing the same wells and latrines. It's basically a giant, mobile germ factory. Cleanliness? The Romans did have some hygiene practices. They liked their baths. But on campaign, you're lucky if you get to wash your feet with cold river water once a week. You sweat all day, sleep on straw that's been through several generations of bugs, and eat food that's sometimes definitely spoiled. Add that to exhaustion, stress, and malnutrition, and you have the perfect storm for illness. The big 3 killers. Some diseases were especially brutal. First, dysentery, a nasty intestinal infection that causes severe diarrhea. Hence, the famous phrase, the runs. You think you have to pee badly? Nope. This is on another level. Soldiers would be too weak to march, too sick to eat, and too miserable to care. In crowded camps with poor sanitation, dysentery spread like wildfire. If you got it, your chances of dying were very high. Second, malaria. Not just a modern jungle problem. Roman soldiers in swampy regions, especially in Italy and the Mediterranean coasts, got bitten by infected mosquitoes all the time. Malaria meant fever, chills, shaking. Basically your body's way of saying, "I hate you." The Romans had no cure. You just had to hope you survived until the next march or battle. Third, typhus. Carried by lice that thrived in close quarters and dirty clothes, typhus caused fever, rash, and often death. Imagine being stuck in a tent with a bunch of itchy, sweaty guys, all sharing lice and germs like it's some twisted game of tag. Medics? Kinda. But not really. The Roman army did have medici, or medics, but they were more like first aiders than doctors. They knew how to stop bleeding, set broken bones, and maybe pull an arrow out. But diseases, not so much. Treatments were a mix of herbal remedies, prayers, and hope, which, spoiler alert, doesn't work too well against bacteria or viruses. If you got sick, you were often left to suffer or sent back home. If you survived the journey. The toll. Historical records estimate that more soldiers died from disease than from combat, sometimes up to 80% of casualties in a campaign. Imagine that. You train for months, march for miles, live in constant fear of battle, and then get taken down by a stomach bug or a fever. That's not the heroic death you imagined. No glory, no triumph. Just slow, painful misery. Survival strategies. Some soldiers tried everything to stay healthy. They drank lots of water if it was clean. Tried to keep their clothes as clean as possible. Good luck. Burned incense or herbs to ward off bad air. Avoided the worst latrines or used them carefully. And prayed to gods like Asclepius, the god of healing. But honestly, it was mostly luck. Death march, death camp, or death bed. The irony is brutal. The same marches that built strength also spread disease. Long treks weakened your immune system, exhaustion made you vulnerable, and close living quarters guaranteed germs a perfect home. When you finally made camp, you were safer from enemy swords, but less safe from invisible killers. Many soldiers spent their final days lying in a corner of the camp, weak and delirious, while others marched on, unaware their buddy had already given up. The psychological toll, this constant threat of illness, combined with brutal discipline and endless work, wore on soldiers' minds. Homesickness, fear of dying alone, watching friends waste away. It was hard to stay motivated. Some turned to drinking Posca a little too enthusiastically. Others kept silent, grinding their teeth and pushing on. The Roman army demanded toughness, but sometimes it was just sheer stubbornness that kept you alive. But here's the catch. Despite all this suffering, the Roman legionary system was remarkably effective. Why? Because Rome knew how to keep moving forward. They rebuilt camps, replaced sick soldiers, and kept marching. And as brutal as the death toll was, the army's discipline and organization helped Rome dominate the ancient world. Let's say you've made it this far, marching, training, surviving disease, eating sadness-flavored porridge. Congrats! You've now earned the privilege of carrying around the tools of war every single day. And let's be clear, Roman military gear was no joke. It wasn't made for show. It was made to kill, and just as importantly, to keep you alive. for a little longer. So let's take a good, sore-footed look at your new best friends and potential worst enemies. The scutum, your door-shaped lifesaver. First up, the scutum, your shield. This thing is massive, about 3.5 feet tall, curved, rectangular, and made of layers of wood, glue, canvas, and leather, all painted with your Legion's insignia. It weighs 10 to 15 pounds, and it's shaped to wrap slightly around your body. Carrying it is like walking around with a small door strapped to your arm. But you love it anyway. Why? Because this shield is your best friend in battle. It protects your whole body, lets you push into enemy lines, and forms a living wall when your unit locks together. The famous testudo, or tortoise formation. Downside? It's heavy, and your left arm will never feel normal again. The gladius, short, stabby, and deadly. Now for the star of the show, the gladius. It's not a long sword, it's not elegant, it's not flashy. It's about 18 to 24 inches long, short, straight, double-edged, and designed for one thing: stabbing. Romans didn't believe in swordplay theatrics, they believed in efficiency, a quick stab under the ribs, a thrust to the gut, a jab through the thigh. It's fast, lethal, and doesn't get stuck in bones like bigger swords. You're trained to stay behind the shield, lunge forward, stab, then reset, over and over. No swinging like a movie gladiator. That'll just get your arm hacked off. The pilum. Throw it once, hope for the best. Next up, your pilum, the Roman javelin. Actually, you carry two of them. They're about 6.5 feet long, made of wood and iron, and engineered with pure Roman pettiness. The iron tip is soft. Why? So that once it hits a shield, it bends. This makes the shield useless and keeps the enemy from throwing it back at you. Classic Roman move. You throw the pilum before charging. If you hit a guy, great. One less person trying to stab you. If you just hit his shield, also great. Now he's dealing with a floppy metal noodle stuck in his arm protection. The galea, helmet, with attitude. Let's talk headgear. The Roman galea is a metal helmet with side cheek guards, a neck guard at the back, and sometimes a little bump on top, just for flair. Some even had ridges or crests, depending on rank. It's designed to deflect sword blows, and it works, to a point. It also turns your skull into a sweat sauna and makes your ears ring during every drill. But hey, you'd rather look like a boiled turtle than get your head split open by a barbarian club. Lorica segmentata, armor that feels like a puzzle. Now the big one, Lorica segmentata, the iconic Roman body armor. It's made of overlapping iron strips wrapped around your chest, shoulders, and back, held together with leather straps and buckles. When worn right, it's like a flexible tank top made of misery. Pros: it protects you from most slashes. It's relatively light for how much coverage it gives. It makes you look like a walking sculpture. Cons: it takes forever to put on or take off. It pinches in all the worst places. If a buckle breaks, good luck fixing it on campaign. Some soldiers also wore chainmail, lorica hamata, or scale armor, lorica squamata, especially auxiliaries. Those were tougher to make, but easier to maintain. Either way, it's better than a tunic and hope. Caligae, the infamous Roman sandals. Your feet? Yeah, they're still suffering. The caligae are the military sandals you've been wearing since day one. Open-toed, laced up to your shins, and nailed on the bottom with hobnails for grip. They're great for long marches across dry land. They're terrible in snow, mud, or rain. And guess what? Rome fought everywhere. No socks, no padding, just calloused skin and blisters wrapped in determination. Other gear, not yours, but important. You may also see slingers carrying pouches of lead bullets, archers from Syria or Crete with composite bows, engineers hauling ballistae and onagers, ancient artillery. You don't carry this stuff, but it's all part of Rome's toolkit. Together, it creates a combined arms force way ahead of its time. Gear that kills you. Here's the cruel twist. All that gear that's supposed to save you. Yeah, it can also get you killed. Your armor can slow you down if you're retreating. Your shield can block your vision just long enough for someone to flank you. Your helmet makes it hard to hear. Your pylon, you only get one shot. Miss, and now you're in a sword fight. In the heat of battle, when everything is chaos and noise, you have to trust your training, your gear, and the guy standing next to you. Because no matter how strong your gladius is or how shiny your armor looks, you're just one wrong move away from bleeding out in the dirt. But when it works, you're a tank with legs. Here's the beautiful part. When your unit is drilled, disciplined, and moving together, you become a walking wall of death. Shields locked, spears thrown, swords stabbing in rhythm. The enemy panics. They scream. They run. And you keep marching forward. It's not flashy. It's not pretty. It's Roman warfare. And it works. You wake up with the sun. Or, more accurately, before the sun. Why? Because you're a Roman legionary, and that means one thing. You do not get to sleep in. Rise and whine. Pre-dawn wake up. The horn sounds, and boom, day begins. It's still cold. You're still half asleep. You're wrapped in a damp cloak that smells like regret and last week's rainstorm. But your optio, your officer's assistant, is already stomping around, yelling. No breakfast yet, no stretching, no meditation playlist. Just get up, fold your blanket, strap on your sandals, and try not to punch someone before your feet touch the ground. Quick hygiene, kind of. There's no bathroom, there's no toothbrush, there's just a bucket of water, if you're lucky, your hands, maybe a rag you haven't lost yet. Splash your face, rub off the worst of the stink, and that's your morning routine. If you're stationed near a river or spring, maybe you get a better wash. But on campaign, you're going to smell. Everyone smells. You stop noticing. Morning chores, aka the endless to-do list. Next up, camp maintenance. Your day starts with digging, cleaning, and repairing. Every Roman soldier is also a construction worker, a janitor, a landscaper, a carpenter. If the latrines are overflowing, guess who's fixing them? If a tent's ripped, guess who's stitching it? If the camp walls need reinforcing, guess who's hauling timber at 6 a.m.? Yeah, it's you. Rome's army ran like a machine, but you were the engine. Morning drills because you're not tired enough yet. After chores, it's time for weapons training. You grab your training sword, which, by the way, is twice as heavy as the real one, and head to the practice field. You're already sweating before you even swing. Now, you practice shield formations, go through sword and gladius drills. Throw your practice pylon at wooden targets. Run laps, always more laps. March in formation until your brain forgets how to walk normally. The centurion shouts. The optio shouts louder. Someone pukes in a bush. And then more drills. It's brutal, repetitive, and painfully effective. Midday meal. Your favorite sad porridge? Sometime in the late morning or early afternoon, you finally get to eat. Kinda. It's back to your usual fare: grain mush, pulse, maybe a scrap of pork or cheese, a mouthful of posca, aka sour wine vinegar water. It's not glamorous, but it fills your stomach. Sort of. You eat fast, surrounded by your tent mates, all grumbling about blisters and how much they miss actual beds. Some soldiers try gambling, playing dice, or telling dirty jokes. You laugh because the alternative is crying. Afternoon labor. The fun doesn't stop. Once your short break is over, it's back to work. If you're not actively at war, this part of the day is filled with whatever busy work Rome decides you need to do. Building roads, yes, actual Roman roads. Repairing weapons or armor. Sharpening tools. Collecting firewood. Foraging for food. Standing watch at the camp's edge. Writing letters, if you're literate, or dictating one to a buddy if you're not. And remember, you're still in full gear, or at least partially armored, just in case someone decides to invade during your lunch break. Guard duty, everyone's favorite punishment. At some point during the day or night, you're going to be on guard duty. Could be the gates, the walls, the food supply, or the latrines. Seriously, you stand there for hours, not blinking, while your legs slowly become stone pillars. And if you fall asleep on watch, let's just say the Roman army didn't believe in gentle warnings. Punishment could be beating, flogging, or execution. They were very clear about keeping your eyes open. So yeah, coffee didn't exist, but fear worked just fine. Evening assembly, more orders, more headaches. As the sun starts to go down, there's a roll call and orders for the next day. You and your unit gather, gear cleaned, ready for inspection. This is when the centurion yells about something you did or didn't do. Someone gets punished. Tomorrow's schedule is handed out. You start quietly planning your next escape fantasy. If your unit did something well that day, maybe a small reward, extra rations, or time off from latrine duty. But mostly, it's good job, do it again tomorrow. Better. Campfire, dinner, and trying not to die of exhaustion. Finally, night falls. You get one more meal, more grain mush, maybe some beans, olives, or dried fruit. You sit with your contubernium, your 8-man tent squad, pass around water or posca, and try to laugh at the day. If someone has a lute or flute, maybe they play something. If someone has dice, there's gambling. If someone has an ounce of creativity left, maybe you hear a story. But mostly, you just sit, ache, and maybe stare at the stars for a second before sleep slams into you like a charging elephant. Sleep, kinda. You sleep on a straw mat, on the ground, with 7 other sweaty guys packed into one tent. If it's winter, you freeze. If it's summer, you roast. If it's raining, good luck. And just when you start dreaming of home, horn blast, middle of the night watch duty, time to stumble out, half awake, and pretend you're ready to defend the empire again. So, yeah, free time. What's that? If you're lucky and not on campaign, you might get a few hours of leisure time. But free in Roman terms usually just means you're not being yelled at right now. There's always something to do, something to clean, something to prep, or someone yelling at someone else. The army was built on routine, discipline, and control. And that meant your time wasn't yours anymore. So you've made it through drills, blisters, bad food, and long days. Now let's talk about what happens if you mess up. Short answer, pain. Long answer, public pain, creative pain, psychological pain, possibly lethal pain. Because the Roman army wasn't just built on strength, It ran on discipline, and Rome had a very clear way of keeping everyone in line. Make punishment brutal and make everyone watch. The golden rule: obey without question. As a legionary, the one thing that's drilled into your brain harder than sword drills is this: obey or suffer. Doesn't matter if the order is cruel, stupid, or suicidal, you follow it. Because Roman discipline was less about logic and more about fear and order. What counts as disobedience? Let's say you fall asleep on guard duty, lose your weapon, wander off without permission, talk back to a superior, run from battle, drop formation, or, God forbid, steal from your fellow soldiers. Congrats, you've just earned a ticket to Roman-style justice, and there's no due process, no court, no lawyers, just your centurion and his mood that day. Light punishments, still not fun. Okay, let's say you mess up in a way that isn't too serious. You might get extra fatigue duty, more ditch digging, more latrine cleaning. Basically, punishment disguised as productivity. Reduction in rations. Hope you enjoyed that tiny piece of pork. Now it's gone. Welcome to the Hunger Games, Roman edition. Public humiliation. Maybe you get to wear something ridiculous. Maybe your armor gets taken away during drills. Either way, everyone laughs, except you. Beating with a vine staff. Centurions carried a stick called a vitis. If you step out of line, whack, right across the back or legs, no questions asked. Think of it as ancient HR training, but with more bleeding. Now let's get serious. The real Roman stuff. When Rome wanted to make a point, it didn't whisper. It shouted in pain. Fustuarium. Beaten to death by your friends. This was reserved for desertion, theft, or cowardice. How does it work? Simple. The entire unit surrounds the guilty man and beats him to death with clubs, stones, or whatever's lying around. And here's the catch. If you don't participate in the beating, you're next. Rome didn't just punish individuals. It used peer pressure and shared guilt to enforce discipline. You kill your own to preserve the unit. It's horrifying, but it worked. Execution by decapitation or crucifixion. Standard punishment for treason, murder, or seriously messing up in a battle. If you were lucky, they just chopped off your head. If not, you got crucified, slowly, publicly, and with birds waiting nearby. Fun fact, Romans crucified soldiers more than criminals, because to Rome, betrayal in uniform was the worst sin of all. Decimation, the nuclear option. Now here's the big one. If a whole unit acted cowardly or mutinied, the centurion didn't just punish one man, he punished 1/10. It worked like this. The entire cohort, hundreds of men, is lined up. 1 out of every 10 is chosen by lottery. The rest of the unit beats those unlucky 10 to death. You didn't even have to be the one who screwed up, just unlucky. Rome believed that fear made loyalty stronger than friendship. That's how far they went to keep the army from collapsing under its own size and stress. No sympathy, no exceptions. But what if I was tired? Nope. What if I had a good reason? Still nope. The rules were brutal because Rome knew this truth. A soft army dies fast, and Rome didn't build an empire to lose it over bad discipline. You don't have to like the rules, you just have to follow them. Or else. Why soldiers accepted it? Believe it or not, many legionaries accepted the harsh punishments. Why? Because it kept everyone in line. It made your unit stronger. It weeded out the weak. And honestly, after a while, you just got numb. Better to be part of a feared, respected machine than a loose group of guys winging it in battle. And let's be real. If someone in your squad endangered your life by being careless, you might want them gone too. When the system goes too far. Of course, sometimes punishment went off the rails. A sadistic officer, an innocent man wrongly accused, a unit punished because of politics. But the thing is, once it happened, there was no going back. Rome didn't do apologies. They did order, even if that meant innocent blood. Discipline wasn't just physical, it was mental warfare. All of this created a soldier who obeyed instantly, expected pain, trusted his unit, feared his superiors more than the enemy. That's what Rome wanted. By the time you're 6 months in, you don't question anything anymore. You march, fight, and follow orders on instinct. You don't get to be sentimental, you get to be efficient. Let's not sugarcoat this. You joined the Roman legion thinking the worst part would be the marching, the training, or maybe the food. But all of that? That was just the warm-up. Now comes the thing the legion actually exists for: war. And if you think you're ready for battle just because you've done sword drills and marched 20 miles with a pack of rocks, think again. Because this isn't a game. This is kill or be killed. And most first-timers, they learn that the hard way. Step 1. Waiting to die. You're standing in formation. Shield in one hand, gladius in the other. Legs numb, mouth dry. You can hear your own heartbeat. You can smell your neighbor's sweat. You can see the enemy forming across the field, just rows of blurry shapes behind the dust. And then comes the long, awkward part, the waiting. You wait, and wait, and wait some more. No one charges right away, because once it starts, it doesn't stop. So for now, you just stand there with your thoughts and your fear, and neither are fun company. Step 2. The signal. Then horns, not music, orders. A sharp blast from the cornu, the curved brass war horn, sends a ripple through your whole unit. Shields come up, pila get raised. Someone yells, the front ranks throw. You watch your javelins sail across the sky. Some hit flesh, some hit shields, some miss completely. Doesn't matter, you're moving now. This is it, no more thinking. Step 3. Contact. The enemy's right there. 10 steps, 5, 2, impact. It's like running into a wall made of wood, metal, and rage. Your shield crashes into theirs. Your whole body jolts from the shock. And then the real fight starts. Close, dirty, loud. You don't swing your sword like in the movies. You stab. Quick jabs under the arm, into the belly, through the groin, anywhere soft. You don't look cool. You don't shout one-liners. You just breathe fast. Try not to panic and stab anything that isn't wearing Roman red. Step 4. Chaos takes over. There is no strategy now, just noise and blood. You hear screaming, not war cries, but real desperate screaming. You see eyes wide with fear, mouths twisted in pain. You smell sweat, mud, metal, and what a man smells like when he dies. Someone near you drops, maybe a friend. Maybe you don't even look. You have to keep moving. If you break formation, you're dead. If you fall, you're dead. If your shield slips, even for a second, you're probably dead. You're not fighting as a person. You're fighting as a cog in a killing machine. Fall out of sync, and the machine crushes you too. And then, the mind goes quiet. Weird thing happens in battle. After the first 5 minutes, the fear gets quieter. Not gone, just pushed down. Your brain switches to survival mode. You don't hear orders anymore. You don't notice the pain. You don't remember where you are. You just keep stabbing. Forward, forward, forward. You're tired, but you don't stop. Because if you stop, you're dead. And eventually, sometimes suddenly, sometimes slowly, the enemy breaks. They run. They scream. They drop their weapons and flee. And just like that, it's over. Sort of. Step 5. Aftermath. You don't cheer? Not yet. First, you count your unit. Who's left? Who's not getting up? You help drag wounded men off the field. You check bodies, yours included. You might not even notice you were cut until later. There's no band, no parade, just breathing, wiping off blood, and wondering how the hell you made it. Then comes the worst part. Looting the dead. Burying the bodies, if you have time, or worse, burning them in piles. If you're wounded, the medicine, field doctors, will patch you up, with no anesthetic. Just vinegar, bronze tools, and grit your teeth screaming. If you're lucky, the wound's clean. If not, infection, and you might not wake up tomorrow. Reward is relative. Did your side win? Cool. That means you might get a bonus in your pay. You might get to grab some loot from the enemy camp. You might get a few hours of rest before marching out again. But don't get too comfortable. Rome doesn't care how many people you killed. They care if your unit followed orders and took the objective. That's all that matters. So what was it like? Let's break it down. Roman battle was brutal, mechanical, terrifying, and completely impersonal. You weren't fighting for glory. You were fighting because if you didn't, you'd die. And most of the time, you didn't even see the guy who stabbed you. It was too fast, too messy. The best you could hope for was to survive, keep your gear, and get through it without puking, passing out, or losing a limb. And if you die, well, that's the end of your story. Maybe someone remembers your name. Maybe not. Maybe your buddies burn your body, or bury you on the side of the road. Maybe you just get left behind. There are no headstones, no flags, just another nameless soldier who gave everything to the machine and didn't come back. But hey, at least your armor might get reused. So, you survived the battle. Congratulations. You didn't get stabbed, crushed, trampled, or decapitated. That already puts you ahead of a lot of people. But now comes a part of war that no one brags about. There are no cheers, no epic speeches, just the grim, quiet job of cleaning up what's left. Welcome to the aftermath. Step 1. Looting. The ancient bonus system. The moment the enemy breaks and runs, if they run, there's a window of chaos, and every Roman soldier knows it. This is your chance to loot. It's not just about greed. This is part of your pay. Rome doesn't hand out medals, but it does let you pick valuables off the dead. What are you looking for? Weapons and armor, yours to sell or reuse. Coins, rings, or amulets. Some go straight into your purse. Food, boots, cloaks, even a better belt. Occasionally, teeth. Yep, soldiers collected those too. Morbid? Absolutely. But after surviving death, sentiment goes out the window. You don't loot your fellow Romans, though. That's a huge no-no. Do it, and you're liable to get your teeth knocked out, or worse. Step 2. The wounded. Patch 'em or leave 'em. Next comes triage. You and your unit go back through the battlefield, calling out for survivors. You listen for groans, for guys still breathing, but too injured to move. If they're lucky, they get dragged back to camp. If not, well, sometimes you just leave them where they fell. There's no ambulance, No clean hospital waiting. Just the medicus, the Roman field doctor, working with wine, vinegar, saws, and brute strength. There's no anesthesia. There are no painkillers. A leg wound might get cauterized or cut off. An infection, you're probably gone in 3 days. You watch friends fade. You try not to get attached. Step 3, burial, if there's time. Now it's time to deal with the dead. If the battle was small and Rome won, there's a chance you get to bury your fallen. Maybe even with a small ceremony. You might burn the body if there's wood, or dig a trench if you're lucky enough to have tools. You don't get individual graves. You don't get a eulogy. At best, a name scratched onto a stone. At worst, a quick prayer to Pluto and a pile of dirt. Enemy soldiers, they usually get left to rot. If you're feeling merciful, you cover their corpses. If you're not, or if orders forbid it, you move on. And yes, scavengers come next. Wolves, dogs, crows. It's a brutal part of the cycle. You learn not to look back. Step 4, burn or move on. Sometimes there's no time for burials. You might be marching out again the next morning. The dead lie where they fell. Bodies get picked apart by nature. In bigger battles, Rome might build pyres, giant funeral fires where soldiers burn in piles. It smells horrible. The smoke hangs for days. You try not to breathe too deeply. Personal effects, a mixed bag. Some soldiers wear little tokens, a carved wooden figure, a lock of hair, a coin stitched inside a sandal. When they die, these get collected, if anyone cares enough. Sometimes their contubernium, their 8-man squad, keeps the item and sends it with a letter back home. Other times, it just vanishes. Rome didn't operate on emotion. It ran on functionality. If a guy dies, you take his shield, clean his spot in the tent, and make sure the gear's ready for whoever replaces him. What if you died? Here's the cold truth. If you die in a quiet battle, near a road or a town, maybe someone records your name. Maybe they send word back to your village. But if you die in a swamp 300 miles from the nearest city, you're just gone. No grave, no ceremony, just another corpse in another forgotten war. And your family might never even know. That's why some legionaries carved their names into their shields or carried small lead tags, primitive dog tags, not for pride, just so someone, somewhere, would know who the bones belonged to. Honor the dead, then move on. The Legion doesn't mourn long. You might say a few words, pour out a sip of Posca, drop a coin at the camp altar, but the schedule doesn't stop. The army keeps moving. There are more roads to build, more borders to secure, more enemies to fight. Today's battle is yesterday's memory by tomorrow morning. That's how Rome survived, by being cold, efficient, and never looking back. The mental toll. You don't talk about what you saw. Not really. You joke about it. You drink. You pretend it didn't bother you. But it sticks. Some guys start praying more. Some stop praying at all. You learn to laugh at things that aren't funny. You try not to dream about the faces, the ones you couldn't help, the ones you had to kill. Rome might conquer everything, but you're just trying to keep your soul from going too numb. And then, camp duty again. The next day, you're fixing your sandals, you're sharpening your sword, you're back to carrying bricks or building ditches. No one's giving you a medal. No one's calling you a hero. You're just one less soldier Rome has to train, and one more gear in the machine. You made it through your first battle. You didn't die on the march. You followed orders. You even managed to loot a few coins off a dead barbarian. So naturally, you think the worst is behind you. Wrong. Because in the Roman legion, you don't need a sword to die. You just need a little water, a bad tick bite, or the wrong cough at the wrong time. Welcome to the part of soldiering no one sings songs about. Disease, parasites, and tent death. The camp is a petri dish. Roman camps were engineered like cities, organized, grid-based, with roads, ditches, and latrines. But even the best engineering can't save you when everyone bathes once a week, maybe. There are hundreds of sweaty men sharing water buckets. You're sleeping 8 to a tent in wool blankets that never get washed. And let's not forget the camp food. Dried meat, barley, cheese, and whatever you could scavenge. All of it stored in bags, crawling with weevils and other lovely surprises. Add in open wounds, flies, and standing water. And congratulations, you've got a walking biohazard with sandals. The real killers wore no armor. Here's the thing most people miss when they picture the Roman army. Most soldiers didn't die in battle. They died in camp, in their tents, and often slowly. The top killers? Dysentery, a fancy name for dying from diarrhea. Malaria, especially in swampy regions like northern Italy or Gaul. Typhoid, which spreads beautifully in camps with poor hygiene. Tuberculosis, the slow rot of your lungs, contagious and miserable. Skin infections, cuts that get infected and turn into pus-filled messes. And parasites. So many parasites. You could march all day, fight like a beast, and then get taken down by a bad sip of water or a flea bite. Let's talk latrines. Yes, again. Roman latrines were ahead of their time. Deep trenches, regularly dug and covered. But here's the problem. They still involved dozens of guys squatting over open pits together. And if someone doesn't follow the routine, if someone doesn't wash their hands, which is everyone, you get sick. The same hands that hold shields and swords are touching food, bandages, gear, and sometimes other people. Sanitizer? Never heard of her. And don't even ask about toilet paper. You've got a sponge on a stick that gets rinsed in a communal bucket. Enjoy. Meet your new roommates. Parasites. You probably have them. Everyone does. Lice live in your tunic. Fleas crawl in your bedroll. Intestinal worms make themselves at home after the third bad stew. They're not deadly, usually, but they sap your energy, make you itch, bloat your stomach, and sometimes crawl out of places they really shouldn't. If you're lucky, they stay quiet. If not, you end up trying to fight with a fever and a belly full of something that's definitely not just gas. The medicus, ancient medicine, modern pain. Roman medicine wasn't entirely useless. They had tools, herbs, even surgery. But they were working without germ theory, anesthesia, or modern antibiotics. So a minor infection often turned into cauterizing a wound with hot iron, amputation with a bronze saw and zero pain relief, pouring wine or vinegar into an open gash and hoping for the best. The medicus might also feed you herbs or minerals, some helpful, some not. You might get better, you might not. No one's tracking survival rates. They just clear space in the tent when you stop moving. Sickness equals weakness, and Rome hated weakness. If you were sick, you weren't useful. And Rome was all about utility. Depending on the seriousness, you might get a few days off from marching. Lighter duties, like sharpening weapons or carrying water, or, if you were too far gone, quietly left behind. No soldier wanted to be that guy who couldn't carry his pack. You get pitied at first, then ignored, then replaced. The Roman machine doesn't stop for a cough. So, what happens when you die in camp? Well, you won't get a heroic send-off. Your contubernium might say a prayer. The optio might record your name, maybe send your stuff to the quartermaster. Then your body gets burned, buried, or dumped, depending on the mood and supplies. If there's time, you're added to a list of dead. If not, you're just lost to disease. Your gear is cleaned, your bedroll gets reissued, and someone else moves into your spot. You're gone. But the army keeps going, just like always. Psychological warfare from inside the tent. Here's the part that really gets you. Watching a guy you marched with, trained with, fought beside, just waste away. You can't fight disease. You can't stab it. You can't outmarch it. All you can do is watch him shrink into his blanket, sweat through the night, and breathe wetly until he stops. And you wonder if it's coming for you next. Some guys start praying harder. Some lose faith completely. Some just drink and try to laugh through it. But everyone feels it. That creeping fear that no matter how strong or brave or well-trained you are, you're still flesh. Why you might crack and no one cares. You can't show weakness in the Legion. If you complain too much, the centurion might think you're faking it. If you cough too loud, your bunkmates move away. If you get too sick, you're just another body waiting to be hauled out before morning inspection. You're not special. You're not protected. You're not immune. You're just next. Let's say you've survived your first few months as a Roman legionary. You've done the training, fought a battle, survived the camp fever, and now, nothing. No one's attacking, no barbarians in sight, no orders to march. Just wait. And this is what breaks more men than war ever did. Hurry up and wait. Here's a secret they don't put on the recruitment scrolls. Most Roman soldiers didn't spend their careers fighting. They spent them waiting to fight. And waiting in the Legion is its own kind of war. You wake up at dawn. You follow the same routine, same drills, same food, same jokes. You stand guard for hours. You walk the same patrol route. You stare at a wall or a tree and hope it does something interesting. It never does. Groundhog Day, Roman edition. Here's your average day in the camp during downtime. Wake up, shiver, groan. Quick meal of bread and stale cheese. Check gear, clean armor, again. Morning drill, same formations as yesterday, same ones as last month. Afternoon duty, maybe latrines, maybe fortification repair, maybe just standing around. Evening inspection, sleep on a straw mattress with 7 other sweaty guys, repeat, every day. There's no social media, no books for most soldiers. If you're lucky, someone in your contubernium can sing or carve dice. If not, you get really, really good at staring at the inside of your helmet. Forced productivity. Rome didn't like idle hands. Idle hands got ideas. Idle hands got lazy. So your downtime, it's full of work. Repairing roads, building forts and towers, digging ditches around ditches, chopping wood, carrying water, and fixing things that don't seem broken. Even when you weren't at war, you were treated like a living tool. If you weren't moving, someone would make you move. Centurions had a sixth sense for soldiers trying to nap behind tents, going stir-crazy. And slowly, the boredom starts eating at you. Guys get edgy. Little arguments blow up into fistfights. Someone spills water and gets shouted at like he just lost a battle. You start fantasizing about anything new. A messenger with orders. A trader with something exotic. Even a plague, honestly, just for a change in schedule. That's how bad it gets. Some soldiers talk to themselves, others go quiet for days. One guy in your tent might spend all afternoon stacking rocks. No reason, just stacking. You start wondering if this is what your life will be. 20 years of rocks and drills and nothing. Enter alcohol. And when the mind breaks down, the wine comes out. Not the good stuff. You're not a senator. You're drinking Posca, watered-down sour wine that tastes like vinegar and sadness. But after a few mugs, it doesn't matter. You sing dumb songs, you gamble, you laugh at nothing. And maybe, just for a while, you stop thinking. Problem is, too much of this, it causes more problems. Drunk soldiers fight. Drunk soldiers miss night watch. Drunk soldiers vomit in the tent and ruin your night even more than boredom did. Still, most would take a hangover over another silent evening polishing sandals, gambling, games, and getting in trouble. Every tent had its own unofficial ways to kill time. Dice games with carved bone cubes. Wrestling matches that always ended with someone bleeding. Story contests, most involving very questionable details. Betting on everything. Who snores the loudest, who trips during inspection, who can eat the most stale bread in one sitting. Sometimes it was fun. Sometimes it turned ugly. Gambling debts caused real fights. And cheating, which happened a lot, could end with broken fingers. The centurions hated it, but they also knew bored men get stupid, and sometimes a dumb dice game was the only thing keeping a soldier from going off the deep end. Religion, superstition, and weird habits. With nothing to do, some soldiers turned to the gods. Hard. Altars would pop up inside tents, little shrines with offerings, coins, bones, dried fruit. Some guys prayed daily. Others performed strange rituals they picked up from far-off provinces. One guy might refuse to leave his bed until he saw a bird fly east. Another might whisper to his sword every night like it was a person. You didn't judge. You had your own weird habits too. When the mind cracks for real, sometimes the boredom doesn't just wear you down, it breaks you. Some men just stopped talking. Others picked fights with their own shadows. One poor guy was caught trying to sneak out of camp to follow the moon. He was never seen again. Rome didn't have psychologists. They had lashes, reassignment, or, if things got too bad, quiet removal. Mental health? That wasn't a thing. You were either fit for duty or you weren't. And if you weren't, the army didn't care where you went, just that you went away. And then, it's back to war. Irony is, just when you settle into the routine, when your mind finally goes a little numb and you're okay with it, war comes knocking again. The horn sounds, the messenger arrives, orders come through, pack up, strap on the armor, form ranks. Just like that, you're back on the road, back in the mud, back in the chaos. And in a twisted way, you're kind of relieved. You've survived the training, the marches, the dysentery, and a few close calls in battle. Your sword's stained, your gear stinks, and your eyes are just a little more hollow than when you started. But not everyone keeps going. Some crack, some freeze, some decide they've had enough. And in the Roman legion, snapping under pressure wasn't something you talked about. It was something that got punished. So you want to leave? Let's say, one morning, you wake up and think, I can't do this anymore. You're done. Maybe it's the disease. Maybe it's the boredom. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's just the constant pressure of always being useful, always being hard. Whatever the reason, that thought enters your mind. What if I just walked away? That's desertion. And Rome hated deserters more than it hated its enemies. Desertion wasn't easy or smart. Deserting wasn't as simple as disappearing into the forest. Rome kept records, scrolls, names, units, equipment. Every soldier was accounted for, every pack, every sword. If you ran, patrols were sent after you. Locals were paid to report you. Other soldiers were told, if you help a deserter, you're as guilty as they are. If you were caught, immediate execution, beaten by your own unit, or nailed to a cross and left as a warning. This wasn't about punishment, it was about sending a message. Rome didn't just kill deserters, it made an example of them. Why men deserted. Anyway, still, some did it. Why? They couldn't take another winter in Germania. They were sick and afraid and figured dying on their own terms was better. They missed their family. They saw the army for what it was: endless work, mud, disease, and pain. Some thought they could blend into a local village, take up a trade, maybe even change their name, and disappear. Most of them didn't make it far, and the ones who did, they lived in constant fear. The Roman military had a long memory. Freezing in battle equals cowardice. Not all breakdowns involved running away. Some happened right in the middle of a fight. Picture it. The enemy's screaming. The ground shakes. Arrows are flying. And one guy just stops. He drops his shield. He turns away. He hides. That's cowardice. And in Rome, it was treated the same as desertion. A man who wouldn't fight was a man who endangered everyone around him. And if you made your unit vulnerable, you didn't get sympathy, you got punishment. The terrifying reality of decimation. Let's talk about one of Rome's most brutal tools: decimation. It didn't happen often, but when it did, it was unforgettable. Here's how it worked. A unit disobeys orders, retreats from battle, or shows cowardice. The whole unit is punished. Every 10th man is chosen at random, and the other 9 have to beat him to death. It didn't matter if you were brave. If your number came up, you died. By your friend's hands. It was psychological warfare. And it worked. Because in Rome, fear was often stronger than loyalty. What if you just lost it? Let's say you don't run. You don't hide in battle. But slowly, quietly, you break down. You stop sleeping. You mumble to yourself. You twitch every time someone draws a blade. Today, we'd call it trauma. Back then, you were just weak. Maybe the centurion gives you a beating to snap you out of it. Maybe the medicus shrugs and gives you wine. Maybe your squad mates ignore it until you go quiet and don't wake up. There was no treatment, no therapist, no words like shell shock. You either got better or you got replaced. The army watched you constantly. And here's the chilling part. Everyone was watching. Rome didn't rely on trust. It relied on fear and structure. If you muttered about leaving, someone heard it. If you skipped guard duty once too often, someone reported it. Snitches weren't scorned, they were expected. You never knew if your tentmate had your back or was filling out a scroll with your name on it. Rome's loyalty oath wasn't just words. Every soldier swore the sacramentum, the sacred oath to serve Rome, follow orders, and never desert. It wasn't just a contract. It was binding, spiritual, almost religious. Breaking it was worse than crime. It was betrayal. Rome believed that a soldier wasn't a person. He was a part of the machine. And if one gear failed, it got replaced or destroyed. Could you ever quit? Yes, technically. After 20 to 25 years of loyal service, you could be discharged. You'd be rewarded with land, money, or Roman citizenship if you didn't already have it. Some retired soldiers lived peacefully. Others ran taverns, taught swordplay, or just disappeared into the countryside. But most never made it that far. The Legion was a meat grinder, and those who walked away whole, they were rare and lucky. So, here's the deal. If you manage to survive everything we've talked about, the brutal training, the endless marches, the bloody battles, the boredom, the disease, the mental strain, and if you don't snap, desert, or die along the way, you might make it to the finish line. That finish line? Retirement, the prize at the end of the road. Retiring from the Roman Legion wasn't just a pat on the back. It was a big deal. After about 20 to 25 years of service, you could get Roman citizenship if you didn't already have it, receive a land grant, a plot of land in a Roman colony to call your own, or get a cash bonus to start your new life. For a poor farmer's kid from the provinces, this was the promise of a better future. Settling down, sort of. Most retired soldiers settled in frontier towns or new colonies. Why? Because the army wanted to keep control of the borders. These veterans acted like the first line of defense against barbarian raids. But now, as farmers, landlords, or sometimes even local leaders, they planted crops, raised families, and tried to forget the sound of marching boots. But for many, the army was still a big part of life, the double-edged sword of experience. Your time as a legionary made you tough. You knew how to fight, how to survive, how to lead, but it also left scars, physical and mental. Some retired soldiers struggled to adjust to civilian life. They missed the structure, the camaraderie, even the routine hardships. Imagine going from wake up at dawn and fight or die to wake up and plow the field. For some, that was a relief. For others, it was a kind of slow death, celebration and sobriety. Retirement was often marked by a feast, sometimes with fellow veterans, sometimes with local officials. But these celebrations weren't always joyful. For some, it was a bittersweet moment, leaving behind the only life they knew, saying goodbye to brothers-in-arms, facing a future that was uncertain and sometimes lonely. Still, the chance to rest and maybe finally grow old was worth something. Beyond retirement, a new role in Roman society. Veterans could take on new roles, local officials or magistrates in their towns, trainers for new recruits, guards for important roads or cities. The army made sure its veterans stayed useful. And because they'd earned citizenship, many could finally vote, marry freely, and enjoy legal rights denied to others. Could you imagine it? After all the horror and hardship, after dodging death and walking endless miles, you get to sit down, plant a garden, and maybe teach your kids how to read Latin or handle a gladius. It was the dream Rome sold. But here's the truth. Not everyone made it. For every soldier who retired, dozens more died on the march, or in battle, or from sickness, or from boredom-driven madness. The harsh reality. Retirement was a reward, but it was the end of a brutal journey. And sometimes, even retirement wasn't enough. Some veterans lived with wounds, broken bones, missing limbs, haunted minds. Some struggled to find work or acceptance in towns that saw them as outsiders. And many lived their last days wishing they could march once more. So, we've walked this brutal path together, From the moment you first put on the heavy armor, to the long marches, the brutal training, the hunger, the illness, the fear, and even the rare moment when you finally hang up your sword. And by now, you probably have a pretty good idea. You would not last a day as a Roman legionary. The brutal truth. This isn't just a story about war. It's about endurance. Physical, mental, emotional. The Roman legion wasn't just a fighting force. It was a machine, cold, relentless, and unforgiving. Thousands of men marched, fought, and died to keep the empire running. The majority never got to retire, never saw their families again, never enjoyed peace. Death marches, disease, and discipline. Your feet would blister beyond repair. Your body would ache from endless drills and endless battles. Your mind would crack under the weight of constant fear. You'd see friends die from wounds, fever, or exhaustion. You'd face starvation, freezing cold, and scorching heat. And through it all, the army demanded absolute obedience. If you slowed down, or showed fear, or stepped out of line, you'd face punishment. Harsh, immediate, often deadly. The human cost? It wasn't just the enemy that killed you. It was the grind, the weight of armor, the smell of campfire and sickness, the loneliness. A legionary was expected to be strong, brave, and loyal, but mostly to never stop moving forward. If your body or mind gave out, Rome had no room for you. The myth versus the reality. Sure, Rome was the greatest empire of its time. Its legions conquered vast lands and built roads, cities, and monuments. But those victories came with a cost. The myth of the invincible legionary hides the countless stories of struggle, pain, and sacrifice. What can we learn? So why tell this story? Because it reminds us what those men endured, not just as soldiers, but as humans. It shows us the price of power and empire. And it asks, could we survive what they survived? The final word. If you think you'd be the tough one, the hero who stands strong, remember, the Roman legion wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't a video game or a movie. It was mud and blood and endless miles. It was sickness and fear and the constant threat of death. You wouldn't last a day. And that's exactly what Rome counted on.